Week 5 of the fantasy football season. Here's top 12 kickers. I'm ranking this week. The first guy, Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills. Bass has been one of the better kickers so far this season. We know this Bill team's putting up monster points over the last few weeks, 30 or more points the last 3. And now this week with a good matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, where they're middle of the pack type of defense. And this ball game is in London, where it is the Jaguars' second home pretty much, but it's a home game on the schedule here for Buffalo. I think once again they're going to go up and down the field. Bass is going to get opportunities, and I got him at 1. Number 2, Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens. So Justin Tucker this season so far, the numbers haven't been all that great. A couple great games and a couple down games where they only had to score some extra points was this Baltimore Raven team. But this week here, the tough Pittsburgh defense, where I still think Pittsburgh's going to compete. I know a few players banged up and not going to play in this one. Deontay Johnson, Freiermuth out. And we'll see what happens with Kenny Pickett, where they're going to have to settle for some field goals. And we know Justin Tucker, most likely one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker of all time. So this week here, a division matchup at the Steelers, where he's played every season, obviously, at Pittsburgh. I think he has a good one once again. I got him at 2. Number 3, Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles. So this Eagle offense, they're rolling and flying high this season, no pun intended. And this week with a good matchup indoors at the Los Angeles Rams. A bend but don't break type of defense quite a bit, these Los Angeles this season. I think we're going to see some field goals in this one for Jake Elliott. They got this offense at a high pace, getting up and down the field, especially A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts back on the same page the last 2 weeks. And I think Elliott's going to get the opportunities. Indoor game, high-powered offense. This could be a shootout kind of as well between these both teams. And I got him at 3. Number 4, Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Harrison Butker, last week it was a good ball game for Butker at the New York Jets, where obviously they had to settle for some field goals versus that pretty solid Jet defense. And this week, in a potential highest scoring game of the week with the Chiefs going to Minnesota and an indoor game, obviously always a plus for a kicker here. I think Harrison Butker is going to get another 2 or 3 field goal attempts. We know the extra points are going to be there. And this Chief team, they know they didn't play great offensive games. So this week, I think they turned things around and they're going to score more points in this one that they did last week. And Harrison Butker is at 4. Number 5, Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals. So this Bengal team, they're in a tailspin so far this season, 1-3 on the year, with their only victory coming on Monday Night Football in Week 3 versus the Rams, where Evan McPherson had 19 fantasy points in that one. So this week here, I think they're going to lean on him a little bit more as well. Another indoor game at Arizona, which is a plus. And this Bengal team, I think they could get right. A lot of people obviously down on them, and rightfully so, after going into Tennessee and losing 27-3. But this one at Arizona, at minimum, I think they're going to be in the red zone 4 or 5 times. And those are going to be opportunities for McPherson, that has one of the best boots in the league, where he could kick 50-plus in his sleep. So this week with all those factors, and I think people sleeping on Cincinnati, I think McPherson this week has a good one. Number 6, Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys. So Brandon Aubrey, he's come out of nowhere this season for this Cowboy team. And this is what the Cowboys needed: a kicker with accuracy and a kicker who could kick it consistently through the uprights. And that's what Aubrey's done. I know Brett Maher was pretty decent in the beginning of the season last year. Then the second half in playoffs, he definitely tailed off for Dallas. But so far, Aubrey's kicked all his field goals. Just an extra point he's missed so far this season in Week 1. And he's had 3 out of 4 games now where he's had double-digit fantasy points. So this week here, I think more red zone problems it's going to be for the Cowboys, where they can't punch it in versus tough San Francisco 49 defense. And Aubrey's going to have to settle for some field goals. And I got him at 6. Number 7, staying in the same game, Jake Moody of the San Francisco 49ers. So Jake Moody's been solid so far, the rookie they drafted in the 3rd round, San Francisco. Last week, I know he was limited to 5 extra points. But this week here versus a tough Dallas defense, I don't think San Francisco, every drive where they're going to get points, they're going to put in the end zone, where they're going to have to settle for some field goals. So Moody so far, same as Aubrey, 3 out of 4 games this year where he's had double-digit fantasy points. And once again, in a game that's going to be grinded out with 2 good defenses going at it, I think Moody gets a few attempts in this one, and I got him at 7. Number 8, Jason Sanders of the Miami Dolphins. Of the New York Giants, we know one of the worst defenses in the league. A lot of young players in the secondary. And I think this Miami team, after getting trounced last week by 4 touchdowns, they go here versus the Giants in this only their second home game of the season is Miami, and they put up some points. This Giant defense, like I said, really can't stop anyone. I know the defense wasn't horrible last week versus Seattle, but that defense of Seattle dominated that game, where the offense didn't have to do much. So this week, I think Miami's up and down the field early and often, after getting blown out last week. And I think Sanders is going to have many opportunities, or he might just have a bunch of extra points like we saw 2 weeks ago, where he had 10 extra points in that 70-20 ball game. Number 9, Brett Maher, Los Angeles Rams. So Brett Maher, so far 4 games this season with all double-digit fantasy points, and he's amongst the league leaders in fantasy points at the position. So this week, Philadelphia comes to town. We know they're bend but don't break defense at times, where I think Maher at least is going to have 2 field goals in this one and a few extra points. And Maher last week had 16 fantasy points, but he did miss 2 field goals. So imagine he hit both of those. He would have had a monster ball game with Maher with at least 20 fantasy points. So this week here, I think we could see another double-digit ball game here from Brett Maher. And he's still available in tons of fantasy leagues. I don't know what people are waiting for. I know last season inconsistent and missing field goals, and he did miss 2 field goals in Week 4 game, but he's still getting opportunities. They still have confidence in him, and it's a home game indoors, which is also a plus as well. Number 10, Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders. So Daniel Carlson this season, the opportunities really haven't been there. We know he's one of the more accurate kickers in the league and has a big boot as well, and he was amongst the league leaders the last couple seasons in fantasy points in the top 5. So this week here versus Green Bay, a bend but don't break defense on most nights here. I think Carlson's going to have to settle for some field goals on Monday Night Football. I know last week Green Bay, they gave up a lot of points, but this week I think they're going to settle down. And like I said, this Raider offense isn't really that great at the quarterback position, even if it's Garoppolo, who's been a pick machine, and Aiden O'Donnell, a young quarterback, trying to figure it out. So right now, with all those factors, I still think they're going to move the ball decent Vegas with Josh Jacobs and Adams, but settle for field goals. So I got him at 10, number 11, Young Hoku of the Atlanta Falcons. So Young Hoku, he's only had 1 great game this season with 11 fantasy points early in the year in Week 2. But right now, it's home once again here for Young Hoku. And we know he's a far better kicker at home than he is on the road. So the Texans come into town. And Houston, their defense has been playing good football over the last few weeks. And we know this Falcon team at times has tough times punching it into the end zone. So this week here, home game for Young Hoku. He's been a solid kicker, especially at home. I think he turns things around this week, is Young Hoku, when he has a top 12 performance at number 11. And the 12th and final kicker I'm ranking is Nick Folk of the Tennessee Titans. And Nick Folk, 3 out of 4 games, he's been very solid for fantasy owners with double-digit fantasy points. And this week, an indoor game in Indianapolis, a defense that's a bend but don't break. Last week, we saw Brett Maher get 16 fantasy points versus them. And I think Nick Folk's going to get opportunities and chances in this ball game. And like I said, Nick Folk's been one of the more accurate kickers over the last few seasons. So it was surprising to me Patriots traded him away at the kicker position, even though we know they got younger with Ryland, who's been all right. So far, Nick Folk, I think in this one, 2 or 3 chances. This Tennessee offense really don't punch the ball in the end zone as well unless it's Derrick Henry. And I have him at 12, so that's the top 12 kickers I'm ranking here for Week 5 of the fantasy football season.